Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here. I think Ibu Cecilia forgot to mention that I did my first degree at Sanata Dharma University, but many years ago it was called IKIP Sanata Dharma, which is a teacher's college. Back then, one of the best in Indonesia. It still is the best in one of the best universities, institutions in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here, but let me just share one or two things about my university again, so that you get to know a little bit more about my university. The official name is Nanyang Technological University. And what is important for you in the audience is that this is one of the approved LPDP universities. In other words, if you want to do your graduate studies overseas, all expenses paid for by the government of Indonesia, you know where to go. Yeah, Singapore is just a stone throw away from Yogyakarta or from many other parts of Indonesia. If you want to do your master's or your PhD, do consider coming to us. I belong to the School of Education, Fakultas Pendidikan, and locally is known as the National Institute of Education. This is the only Faculty of Education in Singapore, and that's why it's the best. Everyone who wants to be a teacher in Singapore, they have to come to us. They have to study with us, maybe for 3 years, maybe 4 years before they can join the teaching profession in Singapore. We offer a wide range of courses, MA in Applied Linguistics, and also doctoral programs in Applied Linguistics. I'm really hoping that some of you will consider coming and joining me in Singapore. Ibu Laksmita Anandari has been thinking for so many years. I'm just waiting to welcome her to come to my university. Ladies and gentlemen, the title of my presentation is this: what makes a great 21st century language teacher? I think you know the answer already, because Jane spent a lot of time talking about digital literacy, but that is one of the many things that we need to learn in order to become a better, a great language teacher. I'm going to begin by more or less summarizing or answering this question myself, so that you don't have to wait too long. My title of my presentation is a question, and this is the answer to that question. A short answer is this: if you want to be a great 21st century teacher, you need to do this. You need to embrace change, because change is happening really, really fast today. If you refuse to change, if you take your time, your sweet time to change, I think you'll be left behind. Many of you were born in the 20th century. I was born in the 20th century as well, many, many months ago, or many years ago. But I am one of those people who keep challenging myself, who wants to continue to change in order to become a better educator, in order to become a better language teacher, and also language teacher educator. Ladies and gentlemen, change is going to be here with us to stay for many, many years to come. Change is hard at first, but it's also messy in the middle. But at the end of the day, change is something that is wonderful, because it will help you become the best that you can be. Let me underline that: the best that you can be. You don't have to be better than other people, but at least you can become better than you were the day before, better than than you were the week before, and better than you were the year before. So my whole presentation basically is about change. And throughout my presentation, I would like us together to ask this question and to try to answer these questions together. Are you a 21st century language teacher? Are you professionally competent as a language teacher? Are you a reflective teacher? That's point number 2 that I want to share with you. And number 3, are you a student-centered educator? Number 4, this is very much coming from Professor Jane Lammer's presentation. Are you digitally savvy? Maybe the answer is not yet, but are you willing to change? Are you willing to learn to become more savvy in the future? The next one, extremely important, are you a continuous learner? Are you a lifelong learner? If the answer is no, not yet, then it's about time that we embrace the idea of change, embrace the idea that lifelong learning is something that we will have to do, as long as we are an educator, as long as we are somebody who is professionally, working in the area of education. And the last one is gritty. This is one big word that I have learned recently. One word that keeps me going. One word and one idea that has helped me to understand what it means to be spending time, to be putting in more effort in my professional development as a teacher and also as a language teacher educator. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with the first one. The first one is pretty straightforward. It's about professional competence. In any field with the word profession, I think the expectations is that we need to have at least two things: specialized knowledge and also specialized skills in whatever area that we are doing. If you want to be a medical doctor, for example, you need to have a specialized knowledge in understanding the human body, for example, the different parts of human body. But that's not enough. You also need to know or to be able to have the required skills to diagnose problems, medical problems, to offer, a range of treatments to your patients and things like that. In the same way in language teaching, we also need to keep on improving our knowledge, which most of us acquired when we did our pre-service training, but continually we need to continue to improve on our specialized knowledge and skills in the area of English language teaching, and more particularly in the area of foreign or second language teaching. There's one thing that is extremely important these days, in particular in the 21st century, that's about values. And earlier today, I had a chance to have a very brief conversation with Pak Marcus and also Mega and some other people about the values that people in Sanata Dharma hold dear. And those values include, Pak Cons, remember, what are those values? Those values include being dedicated. What else, Pak Marcus? Pak Cons, anything else? That your job as a teacher is not just to teach a set of knowledge and skills, but also to produce graduates who are smart, cerdas. What is the other one? Cerdas and?
Humanis.
And yes.
Humanistic.
Yes.
Humanistic.
Cerdas and humanis. So these are values that you will need to instill in your students, whether you are language teacher educators or whether you are just you are a language teacher in the classroom. Let me share with you the core values that we all hold dear in my university, in my school of education, and these are some of them. Yeah, teacher educators and teachers in training are expected to embrace all these values during their studies and also after they have started their career in schools. Integrity, professionalism, collegiality, diversity. That's a big word these days in education in any kind of profession. And the last one, again, is the theme of my presentation today, embracing change. Yeah. Now let me go a little bit further and focus more on the kind of competencies that English language teachers need to have. Yeah. So professionally competent language teachers must at least have these 4 areas of competencies, and they should also be willing to continue to upgrade, to upskill, and to further develop their specialized knowledge in these areas. The language part, the content, the pedagogy, and an increasingly deeper understanding of the context in which they are teaching. Let me just explain very briefly what each one of these means. In terms of language, if you are training to become a teacher, an English language teacher, I would think that you will need to have a very clear target in terms of your level of proficiency. In other words, before you graduate from your teacher, training courses, the expectation now is for language teachers or English language teachers to achieve at least B2 on the CFR level. If possible, C1. Now that is very important, yeah? What about language teacher educators like you and me? Is B2 enough? No. I think we also need to get at least a C1 level of proficiency, or if possible, C2. I know that many of you in the audience from Sanata Dharma, I think your level is like C2. C2 is like IELTS 8 or 9. C1 is about 7. Now, this is very important to be considered professionally competent. Now, if you want to become an English language teacher in Hong Kong, for example, you can't just, complete your studies in a teacher education university and then start teaching. You can't, because you need to go through another step. You need to be certified, and in order to do that, in order to pass the test, you will need to show evidence of your knowledge of the English language, your proficiency, and also your ability to teach the skill as well. The minimum requirement for a new English language teacher is somewhere in the ballpark of C1 or IELTS 7. If you fall below that, I think you will have to continue learning until you are able to get there. Now, this is also happening in many, many other countries in the region, including Thailand, China, and then Vietnam and other places. Teachers are currently being retrained in terms of their English language proficiency so that they can all get to the desired level of proficiency, so that they can truly be considered a professional teacher. Now, in terms of knowledge, I think you are all well aware, and these are basically some of the most important areas in terms of content, in terms of what you teach, as a language teacher. You need to be familiar with the system, the sound system of the language, the lexical system of the language, the syntax, the grammatical system of the language, and also, becoming very knowledgeable about the various skills that are the focus of instruction in the curriculum or in your school: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So the question we need to be asking continuously is, am I knowledgeable in these areas? Am I still holding on the old ideas about how reading should be taught, how writing should be taught, how speaking should be taught? Am I doing something that is truly, truly supportive, that is truly, truly useful for my students' language development? And of course, the pedagogical skills, follow, right after your knowledge of the content. Knowing the content is one thing, but being able to actually implement the ideas with the right pedagogical skills in the classroom is another important consideration. So content, language, and pedagogy. The last one, this is very, very important, because we know that there is no one single way of teaching that is applicable globally in different places in the world. Not like in the old days where people tended to use one single method to address the different needs of the students learning in different situations, in different contexts. Now we become more aware that context is so, so important. It's nothing like a neutral method. Method of teaching is always embedded in a very particular context and culture. And I think we know that, the moment you find yourself teaching in a school, then you need to understand the social cultural context of English language teaching in that particular school. You should also understand the kind of learning resources that are available, and in many places in Indonesia that are not available, basically. So you need to find ways of making these resources available using more innovative means. Number one is done. Professional competence, basically, yeah? So the key message again is, yes, we know all these things are important, but the way forward is, how can I further improve on my professionalism as a teacher? I think this is something that is extremely important. Yeah. continue learning, upgrading ourselves until eventually we are able to satisfy the desired professional standards of our field. In this case, is either language teaching or language teacher education. Number two, it's not a brand new idea. This idea has been around for many, many years, but the question is whether and to what extent we have been doing this. We have been doing a lot of reflection. We have been doing a lot of thinking about what we did before and whether or not we've been able to learn from our experience. A wise man says many years ago that experience is important. If you have 10 years of experience, that is very, very important. But more important than that is this: what you do with it is even more important. Because 10 years of experience can be the same experience repeated 10 times over a 10-year period. Betul ya, Pak, ya? And that is experience, not a bad thing, but it's not very, very meaningful to you. It has to be something that you actually reflect upon, something that helps you learn from your experience, something that will help you to do a better job next time. So what you do is even more important. What you do with that experience is even more important. Now, here is a quote that I like very much, and I think we should all try to remember this together. This is the essence of constructivism. The big word is constructivism. Yeah, in a very simple language, this is what constructivism is all about. Learning is a continuing process of constructing, deconstructing, and reconstructing of experience. It's a mouthful, I know, but the key word here is a continuing process. It's a never-ending process. Yeah, looking back, looking forward, continuously. Do you know who said this? Here's a quiz for you. Mita, who said this? Do you remember? I did. I just said this.
Yeah, I was about to say that, but
no, it's not me. It's not my language. It's not my words. It's not my idea. Who said this? This guy. I think I think you know this guy. I mean, he was one of the most influential language philosopher or education philosopher, if you like, and that's what he said. Yes, people. Yes, colleagues. Experience is important. But more important than that, if you want to move ahead, if you want to learn more from your experience, then you have to look at it very carefully. You have to do it. You have to sit down. You have to reflect upon your experiences. So reflective teaching basically is about this, about looking back regularly. Tidak untuk disesali, looking back with a very positive outlook about what you did. Don't be too critical about yourself, but looking back, you still have to do. In order for you to look forward, in order for you to be able to move forward, to become a better teacher, to do a better job, to do a much more effective lesson next week or the week after. And for you to do this, you need tools. We need tools, either the usual traditional tools like writing a journal, a teaching journal, or keeping a diary of your teaching experiences. Or today, if you want to use technology, use video. Yeah, video record your lesson, and then you look at it after that. But make sure when you look at the video, make sure that you are in a good mood. Otherwise, you will be blaming yourself. Why did I do that? I did not really mean that. What was it I was thinking in that lesson? Yeah, but a video recording will prove to be very, very useful. And then you can look at the video yourself, alone, in private. But if you want to learn more from your own video, get somebody else to look at your video. And I'm sure you'll be able to learn a lot more. I know it's very difficult for you to hear other people's comments, especially when the comments are not very positive. But I think we know, deep in our heart, good comments are the kind of comments that are friendly but critical. Yeah, comments from our peers that are friendly but very, very critical, because that is how we learn. That is how we can learn from what we did, from what happened in our lesson the day before or the week before. Here are 10 ideas. You can take a photo of this, and then but later I'm going to give you the PowerPoint slides of my presentation today. A lot of things that you can do. Now, these are just some simple, practical tips of what you need to do. Things that will help you to reflect on your experience so that you can think about it. You can analyze your own experience so that you can become better. But the key point here is think positive. Yeah, if you do it positively, I think changes become much, much easier for us to engage in. And don't forget, in addition to asking your friends for comments, also ask your students. Yeah, ask your students to give you honest comments. I know students always say nice things about you, but if you really, really try to get them to be honest with you, I think they will be able to give you very, very honest feedback about the way we teach and about the kind of things that we can do better in the future. Number three is about this, big approach that teachers will have to adopt. If not now, I hope in the future, and not too far away future, but in a very, very near future. We have to adopt this approach to education, this approach to teaching known as student-centered teaching. If you do this, there's a good chance that you'll be able to engage your students. Now, the word engagement is extremely, extremely important. And some people have suggested that engagement is the holy grail of learning. Without engagement, the students will learn something, and probably at a very superficial level, but the kind of learning that happens is not likely to be deep and lasting. Engagement is the key to learning. What I mean here is student engagement. Question to you. Question to Ibu Moderator, Ibu Cecilia. Are your students fully engaged in the classroom? The answer is yes, no, maybe. It's very easy. Choose one. Yes, no, maybe.
I can't think. Maybe. But that's the safest answer, maybe.
Yes. Yes, Bapak Ibu sekalian, this is the kind of questions that we need to keep asking ourselves. When you are teaching, or even after you finish teaching, you need to keep asking, are my students engaged? Mentally, emotionally, and also socially. Now, these are three major considerations when you try to engage your students. There is some research that have, sort of examined what makes an effective literacy teacher. So this group of researchers then went out and observed lessons conducted by a group of efficient, very, very good literacy teachers. And you'll be surprised at the finding. The finding is that, well, these people actually did things in the same way as many other teachers. But what is different is their ability to engage their students. They are able to apply what has been called the 90% rule of engagement. What it means is that when 90% of your students are engaged, 90% of the time, then you can call yourself, yay, I am an effective teacher. How about that? So that will be the standard that you want to set yourself, in order to measure teaching effectiveness in the classroom. 90-90 rule of engagement. I know it's not very easy to get a 90-90, rule, but, first try maybe 70%, and then keep increasing until you get to 90%. 100%? Possible? Yes, if you pray very hard, yes. It can happen. Student-centered learning, as I said early on, is about us paying more attention to our students needs, to our students' holistic needs. And I mentioned briefly earlier on that students in the classroom need to be effectively engaged. They need to feel excited. They need to feel relaxed. They need to feel emotionally safe in your classroom. Excited, curious, interested, and all that. They also need to be cognitively engaged. Yeah, that the kind of thinking that they can, express and share with the other people in the classroom is guaranteed by the teacher. Kinesthetic as well. I know that when we deal with adult students, we tend to think that they don't need to use their hands, or they don't need to, to be speaking or to be debating things in the classroom. But research actually shows that, children as well as older adults enjoy being kinesthetically engaged as well. Kinesthetic means doing things in the classroom. Something that is hands-on is always good. And social engagement is also very, very important. Putting students in groups, making sure that students feel that they can learn from, they can work with their peers in the classroom, and they can get a lot of support from the teachers as well. So the social context of learning is going to be very, very important as well. And that is what student-centered learning is all about. It's basically about what the students feel in the classroom, what they think in the classroom, whether you provide the opportunities for the students to do all this wonderful feeling and wonderful thinking, and also the kind of things that they can do in the classroom. You need to include all this in order for you to be able to engage your students. For many years, I've been trying to sort of summarize, some of the most important ideas that we can do, the teachers can do, to engage our students in the classroom, to help the students to become more motivated in our lessons. The 6 T's of engagement, or the 6 T's of motivation. The starting point is the one in the middle, T1. I think that is the most important source of motivation. Yeah. The moment you walk into the classroom, the teachers or the students may feel happy, or the students may already feel frustrated. Oh, not again. That person again teaching me. So the first, T that we need to pay attention to is you. How good are you in terms of relating to your students? Because teaching is about relationship. Teaching is about building, connecting with the people that you are teaching in the classroom. If that feeling of close relationship is not there, then you have already lost the battle, because the students will find it really difficult to do anything else. The other 5 T's are things that I've been thinking about very carefully, and the other 5 T's are things that are within your control, within our control. So we can make changes to these T's, which I'm going to explain to you very briefly. But let me just give you an example of the kind of things that we are not able to change. For example, the gender, balance in the classroom. I know that female students tend to work harder, tend to be more diligent. But, you can't really change, the gender of your students. If you happen to have all male students, then you have to do, you have to make do with it. Yeah, class size is something that you cannot change. You can if you want to try really, really hard. But most, schools will say, no, 50 is what you have in the classroom. You can't change that. But the 5 T's here that I'm going to share with you are things that we can make important changes. The first one is our teaching method. We can change. We can adopt a more effective ways of delivering our lesson in the classroom. Yeah. And I think if you look at the internet, you'll be able to find a lot of different ways that we have not even thought about before. And these ways of teaching may be very, very interesting for our students. Number 2 is the text, the teaching materials. Ladies and gentlemen, in the absence of interesting materials, let me say that again very carefully. In the absence of interesting and relevant materials, nothing much is possible in the classroom. So try to make sure that the materials that you're using are relevant and also interesting. The same thing about the task. I think you need to think about the task that makes students feel curious, but at the same time engages the students cognitively, thinking, exploring, hypothesizing, summarizing, synthesizing, all these wonderful thinking things. The next one is the test. This is a bugbear, and the test is just a bit difficult for most people to make changes. But the thinking these days is not for us to look at tests as the kind of test that we give at the end of the semester, not summative tests. But nowadays, people are thinking in terms of formative assessment, assessment for learning, and not just assessment of learning. And even another dimension of assessment these days is known as assessment as learning, assessment as a tool to help the students to become more aware, to help the students to reflect on where they are in relation to where they want to go. Yeah. So the world again has changed, and we need to change also. It's not the kind of test that we used to know. And the last one is technology. And these days, we simply have to use technology, not just for the sake of using technology, but using technology in a way that is supported, that is grounded in a very strong pedagogical consideration. And without that, technology is just technology. It's not going to make any important changes in the kind of learning that the students do in the classroom. Am I still okay, Ibu, in terms of time? Yeah? Another 2 hours, okay, yeah? Okay.
Oh, that can
yes,
be...
number 4. number 4 is digital. Are you digitally... 10 minutes, yeah?
Around 10 minutes, yes, yeah. Exactly. Thank you.
Number 4, I'm almost done. Number 4 is digital literacy. Are you digitally savvy? The answer is probably not yet. Please don't say no, but the answer is not yet. There's a big difference between saying no and not yet. Not yet means you are now thinking very carefully and seriously about improving your skills in the area of digital literacy, something that you really, really have to, to develop. Whether you like it or not, the world is going to be very much influenced by these huge and massive technological advances. I remember reading a book. I think I need to mention this book to you because that book really gives me a brand new idea about what technology is going to have an effect, major effect on our life. And the name of that book is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. Wonderful, wonderful book that every language educator, every educator actually has to read. 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. If you are good with Google, I think you may be able to download the book for free. But please don't tell people that I'm telling you this, okay? Basically, there are 4 areas that I can think about. Number 1 is you need to be familiar with the kind of tools that will help you in your job as a teacher, as an educator, add tools. Number 2, technology for communication and also for collaboration. And the next one is curating information. I think Jane mentioned this a lot. It's not about reading on screen, but it is about screening what you see on screen. Screening, selecting, identifying and evaluating what is there on your screen. And finally, another important knowledge and skill is how you can manage information. So very briefly, in terms of tech tools, I'm going to be very practical now. In terms of tech tools, I think you need, as a language teacher, you probably need about 10. Fewer than 10 is okay. But if you know only 1 or 2, that's not good enough. Roughly about 10. And these are some of the tools that I am familiar with. The kind of tools that is extremely useful for teaching purposes, whether you teach language or whether you teach other subject areas, these tools are very, very useful. I'm sure you have seen this before. What is good about these tools? Number 1, they are easy to use. And number 2, Cecilia, number 2, they are free. Isn't that good news? Easy to use and they are free. And that is very important, easy for us to learn and easy for the students to learn as well. So that in the classroom, you don't spend a lot of time trying to work out the technical details of the application. Now, in terms of communication and collaboration, these days, everything is digital, and that allows you to share information, to exchange ideas, and also to collaborate. And that is extremely an important skill. Yeah. One word that I've learned in the past few months is transmedia literacy, the ability to move from one media to another media with greater ease and greater competence. Because writing using the usual media is very different from communicating using, social media, for example, or putting your lesson on YouTube, for example, is going to be different from, doing something else, which is not related to learning or education. I would like to highlight this. This little guy is going to be extremely important in the future because things are going to be video-based. Look at the business world. I think they have moved very fast into video-based business commercials and advertisement. Everything is video-based. And more important than that, information now is presented through videos in a very, very short duration, like TikTok, for example, very short. Yeah. And now there are millions of TikTok out there, and also video materials on YouTube. So the message that I want to get across is be ready to learn how to use videos in your teaching. That is the future, whether we like it or not. Yeah. Still, PowerPoint slide is okay, but I think increasingly we'll be using a lot of videos. And I'm learning a lot in terms of how I can produce materials using videos. So in the future, your lessons will have to be video-based, your syllabus will have to be video-based, everything will have to be video-based. Next one, just very briefly, curating information. That is an extremely important skill that you need, and also your students need very, very urgently. How to screen information, how to find information, how to select information, and and finally how to evaluate information, whether the information is credible, reliable, from good sources, and things like that. Yeah. And finally, look at the big word there, info obesity. When I was a student, like 30 years ago, information was very, very limited. There was a lot of information out there in the world, but most of this information was not accessible. But today, information from anywhere in the world is available and accessible. So we tend now to have more information that we need. That's good news and bad news, yeah? The good news is now information is freely available. Yeah, but the not so good news is this: we need to learn how to manage this huge, massive body of information that is freely available. If you don't know how to manage this information, you will end up being obese, information-wise. So you need to know how to prioritize what information is useful and not useful, and where do you want to keep this, huge body of information. In your mobile gadget, in your computer laptop, on the clouds, and things like that. And then the problem of retrieval as well. I have a lot of information these days, and my problem is not storage, my problem is retrieval. Even what I had yesterday in my computer, I may have already forgotten. So I need to continue to learn how to manage this huge body of information that I'm collecting at the moment. 2 more to go. Ibu Cecilia, I know I'm a bit ambitious, although I've tried to share only 6 ideas, but it turns out that these are very, very interesting to share with you. Number 5 is lifelong learning. Yeah, I've been saying this since the beginning of my presentation. If we want to change, this is your best bet. The best thing for you to do in order to change is to continue learning, to become a continuous learner. Now, here is something. Good news for us, actually. Look at this. Lifelong learning is good for your health. Oh, look at that. It's good for your health. It's good for your wealth as well. You won't become a millionaire. No, teachers are not very much into money. But I think with more information, more knowledge, with more skill, I think you are more marketable. I think you can easily find a job, in many different parts of the world. And also your personal, social, and professional development. So lifelong learning is a good thing. Yeah, that's according to Harvard Review. In my university, the philosophy for lifelong learning is conceptualized like this. Lifelong learning is learning forever, basically. But what do we do along the way, from now to, I don't know when? I think there are things that we can do. We can deepen our learning, deep learning. Yeah. For Cecilia, if you specialize in grammar, then you can deepen your knowledge in that area. Ibu Henny, if your area is creative writing or creative teaching, you can further deepen your knowledge, your skill in that area. More important than that, or maybe equally important, is life-wide learning. Please, people, our discipline, our profession as language teaching profession is not in a silo. I think we learn a lot from other fields, other disciplines. Please open up your horizon. A lot of things that we can learn from the world, basically, from psychology, from education, from business, from many other areas of disciplines. And finally, lifelong is important, life deep is important, life-wide learning is important, but the ultimate goal of our journey towards lifelong learning is this. The ultimate goal is life-wise learning, the ability to make good judgment in terms of what is good for you and what is good for the community. You may have heard about this. I just want to reiterate that this is true. Maybe not so true in the last century or in the century before, but today, with so much information and with so much new knowledge being generated, I think we need to be willing to have this important attitude that learning is forever. We need to continue to learn. We need to relearn what we have learned before. And more importantly, I think we need to unlearn, to be willing to unlearn what we learned before. Surprise, surprise, many of the things that I learned before was only partially correct. And some of them were completely wrong, actually. So we have to admit and be willing to, to continue learning, to learn, to relearn, and also to unlearn. This is number 6, the last one. Ladies and gentlemen, the word is grit. The word is gritty. When I first saw the word, I looked it up in the dictionary almost immediately, because this is the word that I did not use very often, that I wasn't very, very familiar with. Now, grit is a word that was introduced by this psychologist, Angela Duckworth. And she wrote a book, and she did a beautiful, beautiful presentation on TED, on TED Talk. And the title is Grit. And this is basically what she said in her book, based on her years and years of research into the factors that contribute to success. Success in anything, success in learning, success in your career, success in your business, whatever. Being gritty, she says, is the most important. And I agree fully with her. I think that is very, very true. Now, this is what she said in her book, actually. If you want to learn a skill, any kind of skill, you need 2 things. Number 1, you need some talent. Talent here is not like inborn, super talent that you were born with. No. Talent here refers to, hey, you have 2 hands. Hey, you have a pair of eyes. Hey, you can use your thinking skills and things like that. So you need that kind of talent. And number 2, effort. Extremely important. Do you stop there? You can, but if you want to continue to become better at the skill that you have just acquired, then you need to do this. Yeah, in order to become better, you need to add another dimension, skill plus another set of effort. And that is the key to success. Wow, when I saw that, I was like, this is something that I've known for years, but this is something that I have not done. And that gave me another, another energy, another desire to continue to put in extra effort in whatever I do in my own professional development. And the key message here is this, that every single one of us can become better and can become the best that we can be. Gritty teachers, this is again further explanation, almost done, book 1 minute. Gritty teachers has a very, very strong purpose about themselves, self-directed purpose. I want to become better. But more importantly, the most powerful kind of purpose is my purpose in whatever I do is to make a difference, in other people's life. And that is the highest form of purpose. And together with that, if you have been able to clearly define your purpose and find your passion in whatever you do, the inner desire to achieve success, you'll be able to persevere, you'll be able to persist, you'll be able to keep at what you are doing, putting in double, triple, extra efforts in whatever you do. And finally, if you want to become a gritty teacher, I think you need to have a growth mindset. This is what a growth mindset is all about. This is coming from another psychologist, and the name of the professor is Carol Dweck. Beautiful, beautiful book that you have to read. And the title of the book is Growth Mindset. Yeah. Now, interestingly, what this psychology professor found is that there are 2 types of people, those with growth mindset and those with the other one, fixed mindset. Which one are you? Are you somebody with a growth mindset or with a fixed mindset? Maybe I'm somebody in between. Neither here nor there. Again, from this book, I also learned that growth mindset is extremely important. Not your social backgrounds, not your social economic status, not your parental education, but it is the mindset, the belief that you can grow, the belief that you can become better, the belief that if you try and if you use different strategies, you'll be able to be more successful in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, my last slides. These are the 6 ideas that I have just shared with you. I hope you are with me in saying amen to the importance of change and to becoming a better teacher, educator, to becoming a language teacher, educators in the future. Thank you very much for listening.